Does President Trump deserve a Nobel Peace Prize?
Well, I think that you've got to be realistic and accept that this would simply not have happened had it not been for the work of President using his own office, the power of his office, and the force of his own personality.
Talking of lefties,
Yes.
did Keir Starmer help or hinder the Gaza situation?
Look, honestly, you can delete this because it's late night, but it's a fart in the gale, right? This recognition.
Why did he bother? Why did he wait until President Trump left?
Why did he?
Starmer waited for President Trump to leave before recognising Palestine as a state.
I don't know. I mean, it's not what I would have done.
Let me take you back to the UK. Tory conference has just finished.
I'm sorry. I've been here, but we've been here.
Yes,
I've been here. So
well, did you see much of Kemi?
I've got to.
No, I
heard good things about it. I heard very, very good things about it.
The future of the Tory party lies where, Boris? Kemi, Robert Jenrick, somebody else?
With Kemi. The strategy has been very much in the last 10, 15 years, keep focusing on the baby boom voters. Keep never mind young people, they never vote Tory. Never mind young people, they never vote Tory. Well, that's over for us as a Tory party. We've got to be going for those people, and you're never going to get
reformer.
Well, that was GB News presenter Ben Leo speaking exclusively for GB News to former Prime Minister Boris Johnson on The Late Show last night.
Yes, but what do we think of... a lot of people already getting in touch saying, Boris is in the past, why does he think he's relevant anymore? But a lot of you used to be terribly keen on Boris at the time. So let's discuss this now with former Conservative advisor Charlie Rowley and political commentator Jonathan Lis. Jonathan, first of all, what did you think of the interview? Is there any point in listening to what Boris has to say anymore?
And to use a woke word, I'm being triggered right now. I'm having horrible flashbacks to the time where I had to talk about that awful, ridiculous man every single day of the week and to document the litany of his egregious statements and actions, wishing for his time in office to end. I'm so happy that those days are over, and it just reminds me of how glad we should be to finally be rid of this ridiculous man who says nothing that isn't in his own interest at any time.
So, Jonathan, do you think we're in a better state now, then, than we were under the premiership of Boris Johnson?
I'm going to make you laugh and say yes, actually.
Really?
I think that he was the worst Prime Minister, apart from Liz Truss, that we've ever had, and that even under a Labour government that is making a lot of mistakes, that is still a better place to be than under a pathological, narcissist, self-interested liar, habitual liar like Boris Johnson, who says nothing of value at any time. So, we can talk about the specificities of what he says in that interview, but really, Boris Johnson is saying what it serves Boris Johnson to say. He has nothing of insight to add, because he's never been someone to add insight to a conversation, because he's always been at the centre of any conversation that he thought worth having.
Charlie, I sense you disagree.
Well, I think Jonathan should come off the fence and say what he really thinks, first of all. But I think, look, you've got to look at the polling, and this Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, is polling as the worst Prime Minister that this country has ever had. So anyone who comes on to say that we're doing better than what Boris had to offer, I think is not clearly part of the majority thinking. And, you've got to understand, Labour are down in the polls, the Tories on the back of their massive defeat aren't doing much better. But why are people then always looking to Nigel Farage? Why are they looking to people in reform? Because of the absolute failure of this government to grasp any of the problems that this country faces. The Tories didn't do much better, particularly when it came to immigration, when it came to the economy. We're about to see tax rises in the next budget. So I think Boris has a place in society to be able to pontificate about being Prime Minister, about the challenges of having won a huge majority for the Tories on the back of levelling up and uniting the country, as he did. He's always great with a turn of phrase, and I thought it was a great interview.
Jonathan,
I think that we should really...
Go on.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I think that we have to just remember that Johnson was censured by Parliament. He resigned as an MP in order to avoid being suspended. The COVID inquiry was absolutely damning. He'd have had to resign as Prime Minister all over again if he had been Prime Minister while that was happening, with all the things that emerged from that. And obviously, we can't forget Partygate and how that struck across the country. No matter what you thought about politics, no matter what you thought about lockdown, that was such a breach of trust. It was one of the greatest breaches of trust that we've seen since the Second World War. So I really think that when we interview this man,
and yet Keir Starmer polls worse. Yet Keir Starmer is polling worse, Jonathan.
Well, that's what I was going to ask, but maybe both of you.
Starmer's more unpopular.
But
not that he's the worst.
You've got two leaders there, both of whom won massive majorities and lost them, or at least Keir Starmer appears to be losing his massive majority. What does that say to the electorate? I mean, who can we possibly believe in next?
That's a really good question, Anne. And look, Starmer has, on many different metrics, failed, absolutely. And I'm prepared to make a bet with you as well that if Nigel Farage were to win the next election, his popularity would plummet very, very quickly too, because the snake oil that he is selling will be exposed as just that, just another round of a fake medicine from a charlatan who doesn't know how to solve anything except address fake problems for a grievance culture. That's all he can offer people. He has no real solutions for anything, and reform will be just as unpopular as Labour is after a few months.
But, Jonathan, it's not as if Labour doesn't have their own fair share of scandals here. We had the freebie scandals almost immediately when they came into power. We've had Angela Rayner with her tax affairs having to resign as Deputy Prime Minister. We've then had a backbench rebellion when it comes to some of the welfare reforms the government can't put through because there's too many rebellions from backbenchers. So they're kind of stuck, aren't they? And there's lack of trust with the Labour government as well.
Look, Cameron, I'm completely prepared to accept that the Labour government has made many mistakes in policy, but in terms of sleaze, they absolutely cannot hold a candle to anything that happened under Boris Johnson. The freebie thing, which has happened since time immemorial, where politicians have accepted gifts and declared them, because although there was a slight problem with a few things not being declared, but most of them were declared. Of course, that was a problem. But it's not the same as sending the entire country into lockdown, an unprecedented sort of a confiscation of rights, and then have the Prime Minister engage in all of those liberties himself. That was, in sheer terms of hypocrisy and breathtaking deceit and lack of trust, that is worse than anything that Keir Starmer could possibly have done. And Angela Rayner's tax affairs, even the Prime Minister's ethics advisor said that she acted with integrity, but obviously she made a mistake.
OK, well, I'm afraid we're out of time, but former Conservative advisor Charlie Rowley and political commentator Jonathan Lis, thank you very much for joining us. And I must just say, a lot of you have been getting in contact with us and say that you would not actually forgive Boris Johnson for what he did during the coronavirus pandemic.
Yeah, it's amazing how the response has changed.
Yeah.
Because I think until recently, a lot of people thought Boris would actually come back in on his white steed and save the Tory party.